In a world that pretty much demands constant updates, that public proof of life, the most powerful people might just be the ones who post absolutely nothing at all. Today, we're diving into the calculated and often dark psychology behind strategic silence. We're going way beyond the simple idea of a digital detox to uncover a far more complex game being played.
We've all been there, right? You search for someone, a new colleague, maybe a new date, and you find a ghost, a blank profile, no pictures, no posts. In an age of performative oversharing, what does that void actually mean? Well, most people get the answer completely wrong.
The popular story we tell ourselves is, well, it's comforting. We assume these people are just enlightened, right? They're too busy living these rich, authentic lives to be bothered with social media. They're secure, they're present, they've beaten the system. And while that's a really nice story, it is a dangerously incomplete picture.
And this is where that whole comforting narrative just shatters. This quote reframes everything. It suggests that silence isn't some passive peace. It's an active, strategic choice. It's not about opting out of the game. It's about playing an entirely different one, where withholding information is the ultimate power move.
And all of this is rooted in this fascinating idea, the inverse correlation hypothesis. See, we usually associate dark personality traits with loud, aggressive online behavior, like trolling. But the research reveals a shocking twist. These exact same traits can lead to the complete opposite, a calculated, deafening silence. And this creates a profile we're going to be exploring today, the dark non-poster.
So, to really get the dark non-poster, you first have to understand the dark triad. These are three distinct but related personality traits. So, think of narcissism as this relentless, burning need to be admired. Machiavellianism is the will to manipulate and control, seeing life as a chessboard. And psychopathy, well, that's a profound lack of empathy, coupled with this intense craving for thrills. Keep these three in mind. They are the engines driving everything we're about to dissect.
All right, let's get into our first archetype, the strategic lurker. This profile is powered by Machiavellianism, the master manipulator, the chess player who sees every single social interaction as a game of leverage. The lurker's number one weapon is something called information asymmetry. To them, every photo you post isn't a memory, it's a data leak. Your location, your friends, your emotional state, it's all intelligence to be gathered. By posting nothing themselves, they create a one-way mirror. They see all of your cards while you don't even know they're in the game. It is pure strategic advantage.
And look, this isn't just some theory, it's backed by hard data. Research found a clear, measurable link between high Machiavellian scores and lurking behavior. That number you see on the screen, a beta coefficient, it basically proves that the more manipulative a person's tendencies are, the more likely they are to be watching you in total silence.
So let's be crystal clear here. For the strategic lurker, their empty profile is not a sign of social anxiety or some noble digital minimalism. It is a fortress. It's digital camouflage that allows them to gather intelligence on rivals, on colleagues, on partners without ever revealing their own position.
But what if the silence isn't about cold strategy? What if it's about a fragile ego that's on the brink of complete collapse? This brings us to our second archetype, the silent judge, a product of a very specific and often misunderstood type of narcissism.
Okay, this table right here reveals a critical distinction that most people just miss. We typically think of the grandiose narcissist, the constant selfie poster who's just hungry for admiration. But the silent judge? That's a vulnerable or covert narcissist. Their ego is incredibly fragile. They crave recognition but are totally paralyzed by the fear of rejection, and that leads them to avoid the arena altogether.
The mechanism at play here is an intense fear of negative evaluation. For this person, the thought of a post being ignored or getting just a few likes or, God forbid, a negative comment, it isn't a minor slight. No, it is a catastrophic injury to their ego. So to avoid any possibility of that failure, they simply refuse to play. Their silence is a shield.
But here's the twist. This defensive silence, it quickly curdles into judgment. They reframe their fear as superiority, looking down on those who do post as shallow and desperate. And as this quote reveals, their inaction becomes a kind of passive-aggressive broadcast. It's a silent way of asserting their own importance by deciding that everyone else is simply unworthy of their attention.
So we've seen silence as strategy and silence as a defense mechanism. But our final dark archetype reveals silence as something far more chilling, a byproduct of total indifference, or worse, a tool for predation. So meet the ghost in the machine, the profile linked to psychopathy.
Now, you might think, isn't this just the lurker again? Nope, not even close. Research actually shows that psychopathy is negatively correlated with lurking. The Machiavellian has the patience to watch and wait, but the psychopath, they're driven by impulsivity and a need for constant stimulation. They don't have that patience. Their silence isn't for observation, it's a symptom of something else entirely.
So why the silence? It boils down to two main reasons. First, a stimulation deficit. To a psychopath, the endless stream of vacation photos and baby announcements is just profoundly, painfully boring. Second, and this is far more sinister, is forensic prudence. For someone engaged in fraud or harassment or catfishing, a personal photo is evidence. It's a link to a real identity. Anonymity is a predator's most essential tool.
Okay, so after exploring these pretty dark archetypes, let's be really clear. Not every quiet profile is hiding a sinister motive. Of course, there are healthy, totally normal reasons for staying silent. The key difference always is the psychological driver behind the behavior.
The healthy non-poster might be a digital stoic, someone who just sees the attention economy as a distraction. They could be a secure individual whose self-worth isn't tied to likes and shares, or they could simply be a privacy guard, someone who's justifiably wary of their data and who sees it. Their silence comes from a place of strength and self-preservation, not from pathology. For them, silence isn't a weapon or a shield, it's just peace. And this all brings us to the inhibition matrix, which really synthesizes why each of these archetypes chooses silence. It all comes down to motive. The lurker is driven by a desire for control and sees you as a competitor. The silent judge is driven by a fragile ego and sees you as a rival. The ghost, driven by sheer indifference, viewing you as prey. And finally, the healthy non-poster, the minimalist, is driven by autonomy and simply sees the whole platform as noise.
So here's the ultimate takeaway. An empty profile is not an empty signal. It is packed with information. It can be a sign of a well-adjusted person, sure, or it can be the camouflage of a manipulator, the shield of a covert narcissist, or the digital non-footprint of a predator. The silence speaks its own language, and now you have the tools to start decoding it.
Which leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. As facial recognition and AI make our digital footprints permanent and searchable, will the ability to remain truly invisible, to be an untraceable ghost in the machine, become the ultimate form of modern power? What happens when the most powerful players are the ones you can never even see?